Brilliant. Thank you very much for coming. I've been to quite a few of the sessions today, and there seems to have been a theme around we need the right leadership, we need the right talent, we need the right collaboration. What got us here isn't going to be what's going to get us there. And it keeps going through regardless of whether we're talking about the tech or the energy transition challenge or whatever part of sustainability we're talking about. So I am absolutely delighted to be moderating a panel where we're talking about upskilling leadership for the challenge ahead. So my name is Sarah Galloway. I'm from Russell Reynolds Associates, which is a leadership advisory company. And I'm joined by 4 amazing women who will be able to do a far better job of introducing themselves. So, Una, why don't we start with you?
Thank you, Sarah. Thanks, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here, pleasure to see you all. So I'm Una Kent. I'm the Vice President of ESG and DEI at Walgreens Boots Alliance. We're a global healthcare company, retail pharmacy. You probably, if you know us, you probably know us as Boots or Walgreens on the high street. Or if you don't know us from that, you've probably got Number 7 or Soap and Glory or one of our other brands in your toiletry cabinet. We are in 9 countries in the world. We've got 325,000 employees. 31,000 of those are pharmacists. And we are very much a healthcare-centered company. So I'm very pleased to be here because it's a really interesting topic. And one of and I kind of look at it through 4 lenses. The first lens I look at it is about how important it is to have the idea of ESG connected into your business strategy. The second lens is how does your ESG drive performance and how do you connect ESG approach with the actual performance of the business? How do you make sure that everybody is connected, engaged, and feeling part of the solution? And then finally, how do you take some of these big, bodacious, hairy challenges that are represented by sustainability and park your ego a little bit, lean into Goal 17, SDG Goal 17, and embrace the idea of partnership and that no one can do it alone, like the themes you were talking about earlier, Sarah.
Brilliant, thank you. Catherine.
Great. Hello, everybody. Good to be here. I'm Catherine Dalton. I'm Chief Sustainability Officer at IHG Hotels and Resorts. So a little bit about IHG. We have 6,100 hotels globally. Another 1,800 that will open over the next 3 to 5 years. 18 brands, everything from 6 Senses at the very top end, right through to the brilliant Holiday Inn Express. So 100 markets, and what's really important for me in my role is that we're predominantly a franchise business. So working with third-party owners, our partners and our customers, as well as our actual customers who stay in the hotels. My team looks after all of our sustainability, so our planet agenda, as well as our community impact agenda. And we work really closely with the HR team on DE&I, human rights, and my team leads all of our ESG reporting, which as a primary UK-listed company with a secondary US listing is quite extensive. And for me, I think this agenda is really exciting because personally, I've been at IHG for over 20 years, which is great, and it's been amazing. I started my career in finance. I led investor relations before this role 4.5 years ago, so I guess I've upskilled into this, but I think actually maybe the word upskilling makes it sound a bit scarier than it needs to be, because for me it's more around everybody just understanding what they have to do. It doesn't need to be complicated. So I think that's why it's such an interesting and necessary agenda, because getting everybody on the same path is going to be so important.
Thank you. Rossella.
Hi, everyone. I'm pleased to be part of this panel together with these fellow colleagues. I'm Rossella Cardone. I'm Director and Head of Sustainability at Jaguar Land Rover. It's a British iconic company producing and selling 4 different beautiful vehicles: Jaguar, Defender, Range Rover, and Discovery. And as a company, we have embarked already into a very ambitious decarbonization journey, as we have already committed to be net zero by 2039. And we are into an action phase right now. So together with my team, we really, let me say, work together with our suppliers as we are addressing the full value chain. We are working internally to the company to make our organization, so to say, green, coming from renewable. And ultimately, we are proud creators of modern luxury electrical vehicles, as we see our future electrical. And this will make us net zero, and will, let me say, make greener the countries where we live. I'm really, let me say, pleased to be part of this panel, since upskilling is part of, is one of the important steps into this journey, since everyone into the company need to understand what sustainability is, what this transformation is for their specific function, what's their role, how then they can contribute into their daily job, and how their job is going to change. So happy to share and to hear more.
Thank you. And Maria?
Yes, hi everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Maria Castillo. I'm the Social and Environmental Impact Director at IESEG School of Management. So it's a management school that's based in France with a campus in Paris and Lille. So I'm a bit of an atypical profile in this panel, as you can see. But the topic of upskilling is clearly at the core of our business, right? It's about training. It's about training the youth. It's about training leaders. So my role at IESEG is to ensure that sustainability is integrated into all of our programs, into all of our courses, into our ecosystem, working with our stakeholders, developing partnerships, increasing that visibility of sustainability and higher education. So it's a pleasure to be here. I think upskilling is a key topic if we want to achieve these ambitious objectives that we've set out for ourselves. And I think collaboration between business and education, higher education, is essential.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. I think one thing in common there is that each of your businesses either has a lot of people in it or touches a lot of people, regardless of where you're at. One of the things we were talking about earlier, and a couple of you have just touched on it now, is that I think everybody understands that sustainability strategy and business strategy and purpose need to be totally aligned. How do you make sure, or how do your businesses make sure that the leaders, both the leaders, the next generation of leaders, and those that are coming through, understand that? What does that mean in your business? Catherine, maybe we can start with you.
Sure. So back in 2021, we launched our responsible business plan to 2030 called Journey to Tomorrow, which has 5 pillars around people, community, and planet. And we've been working on that for some time. Got delayed because of COVID, but it came out. But what was really, I think, the most impactful thing for us was at the same time as that responsible business plan came out, we did 2 things as a business. One, we evolved our corporate purpose to be true hospitality for good for everyone. So that really kind of recognized the role of business playing a bigger part in society, especially post-COVID. And then what was really, really important for me in terms of getting stuff done in the day-to-day was that we evolved our strategy to have a 4th pillar around care for people, communities, and planet. Prior to that, we kind of had this nice strategy model with this sort of while doing business responsibly underpin, which kind of meant nothing on the day-to-day. It looked nice, very good in our annual report, whereas now as a strategic pillar, it means that we're in the discussion with the group executive. It means that we get funding. So in terms of actually, and it gets lots of airtime in internal comms with the business. So it's kind of really seen and is treated as being integral to the strategy. And that's made such a difference.
And would you say each member of the executive understands their role in delivering that?
We're getting there, I would say. Some more than others, but it's come on leaps and bounds in the 4.5 years that I've been doing the job, and that kind of just having that integrated and the CEO driving that has made such a difference.
At WBA, how's that for you?
It's really interesting because there are so many parallels, as you would imagine. So we have recently evolved our purpose as well. So it's to help people lead more joyful lives through better health and well-being. Our ESG strategy and framework has always been health-centred. If you think back to the genesis of who Boots and Walgreens are, you know, pharmacy, healthcare, and throughout the pandemic, standing right there toe-to-toe on the front line here in the UK with NHS and with all the health systems around the countries that we operate in. So we have a truly health-centred purpose and a health-centred ESG strategy that is attached very tightly to that purpose. And that strategy is anchored in sort of 4 core pillars. And ultimately, those core pillars touch every aspect of the business, every aspect of the organisation, and everybody has the ability to get their hands on it and to be part of it. So whether that's our role in healthy communities and looking after the health and well-being of the communities that we serve. We have 13,000 stores around the world. It's quite a giddy number if you think about it. And those stores are many of those stores are in highly underrepresented or underfunded areas. Yeah. So access to healthcare, especially in these difficult times, is very problematic. So we own our responsibility to bring healthcare to people. We also look at it through the products that we sell and we make and the whole supply chain ecosystem that we deliver. And again, a vast proportion of our team members are looking at procurement, are looking at sourcing new products to put on the shelves that we know our customers and consumers will want. So it kind of permeates the whole organisation. And I think the one other big transitional moment that I think we've noticed in WBA in the most recent times is that as the evidence base has grown around the fact that we human beings are responsible for what's going on in the planet right now, we are, responsible for the climate change. We acknowledge and recognise that healthy people, which is our purpose, need a healthy planet. Those two things are symbiotic. And so we're really driving our strategies around how do we really own and acknowledge our role in the health of people and the planet together. And that goes all the way from our board to anyone who's working in our stores, to our pharmacy, to everybody in the organisation.
And hopefully they fundamentally understand that the business needs to be commercial at the same time.
Well, yeah. Goes without saying.
Rossella, does this resonate with you? You already mentioned that everybody in your organisation needs to understand the role they play. Is there anything that you would add to what the others have just said?
Absolutely. First of all, I think I agree with my colleagues that sustainability shall be at the heart of the business strategy of the company. And in particular, it shall be a value creator. For example, for Jaguar Land Rover, we know, and as I said, electrical vehicles will be our business in the future. It will be also the main lever to be net zero in the future. Since 74% of our CO2 emission today will go to zero thanks to electrical vehicles. That's where connecting one-to-one sustainability and business that will give a full clarity into the company that going for this will really generate value, business value, and at the same time decarbonization. And everyone will have clear, the pathway in front of us, including upskilling capabilities, what we need to do to go toward this pathway. The board will play a critical role into this journey. Very important that sustainability has a seat into the boardroom. In the case of Jaguar Land Rover, François Dossat is the executive director for strategy and sustainability, so he's part of the board. And as I'm in charge of the sustainability office into the company, I report quarterly to the board, so there is a board oversight, having visibility of the progress across the transformation that, with my team, I orchestrate as a transformation across the company. However, each board member has the ownership to execute and deliver the decarbonization per each respective responsibility per different areas of the business. And they are fully aware that, of course, they are responsible for the upskilling as leader, they are responsible for the upskilling of their employees across different areas. Since sustainability has one key meaning into manufacturing, as requiring some changes in some aspects, is it little bit different, so to say, for sales. So upskilling capabilities, what's needed, what's important to do today and tomorrow toward net zero. In a way, we require new capabilities. Ultimately, I think how we engage leaders and people, it's also through target settings and incentives. In our rover, we have, let me say, breakdown and cascaded our scope 1, 2, and 3, so our net zero ambitious carbon reduction into targets and objectives for people, and it's also part of bonus incentives for leaders. So in a way, really triggering and making well integrated into one direction all the key actions that are really important to deliver our business strategy. It's our reimagined strategy for electrification and decarbonization.
So they each understand the role that they're playing, they each understand what their KPIs are, and they're going to be rewarded for it if they get it right. It's like all pulling that all through together.
Yeah.
It's really interesting you mentioned the board, and I think we'll come on to governance in a minute. But recently I was with colleagues in Singapore, and they've just made it mandatory that board directors have to have training in ESG. And we don't have that in the UK yet, but it will be really interesting. We, as Ross Reynolds, are seeing more and more demand for somebody on the board who not is an ESG expert, but somebody who has been on this journey and has seen the transformation of a business in order to help ask the right questions and educate the rest of the board. Maria, it'd be really interesting to hear from you, because clearly you've got the responsibility for your own organisation, and then also for all of your clients, who are those that you're educating as to what of the others have said has resonated to you.
Yes. I mean, I think as a management school, as I said, we're kind of an atypical profile in these kind of discussions, but yet we have a key role to play in supporting companies go through and driving and accelerating this transformation. So we work very closely with companies, with business leaders, to try to get them to understand the needs in the market, and then develop together programs that will help them build the skills, the competences, the knowledge, to then integrate all of that into the company. So we work through customized programs that really adapt to company needs, whether it be in the boardroom, because I would be curious to know how many of your board members would actually know how to explain Scope 1, Scope 2, Scope 3, right? We know that still there's a gap between the knowledge we have on some of these terms, the science behind it, and our role is to be able to support organizations through that. So we work a lot with different types of organizations. We've worked with a big French family holding that owns a lot of companies in France to develop a climate training, because their objective was that business leaders in all the companies of the holding could have a common language related to climate risk, and the implications that had for their business. So we worked with them on a specific training for that. We are just working with a very large French bank on a training related to climate risk, because knowledge around climate risk is usually limited to people working on risk. Yeah. So how can everybody in the organization, all leadership, understand what climate risk means for their business, but also for their clients' business? So we see a strong increase in demand from companies for these kind of upskilling, reskilling, and we also see a very strong need for collaboration between higher education institutions like ours that have the experience, that have the know-how in developing, these kind of learning journeys, and then just putting them into place. And at the same time, our core business and the majority of what we do is teaching future business leaders. And I think we have a huge role to play in ensuring that when they get to the job market, they have those skills, they have the knowledge, and they have the passion to drive that change. When you look at figures from the ILO, and you see that there's going to be about 100 million new jobs that will be created by 2030 because of the green economy, and that 4 out of 10 people will need to be reskilled or upskilled, we need to ensure that young leaders get ready to go into companies like yours and help drive change. And when you look at our programs today, we're still a bit far from that. So I think those two things need to happen in parallel. We need to make sure at the board level, top management, and all the way down, companies are really investing and committing to upskilling, while on our side, we are training, future leaders, whether it's business, engineers, architects, it doesn't matter, to ensure that we accelerate change, because we have very ambitious challenges. It's very complex, and we need to collaborate to make that happen.
Yeah, I think I heard in one of the previous sessions that it's actually not the younger generations that need educating. It's actually the middle management and the more senior management that are actually going to have to play catch up. And I think when we had the whole digital transformation, there was we certainly saw some sort of reverse mentoring opportunities where the younger members of organizations were actually mentoring the more senior in terms of helping them.
If I can just jump in super quickly on that, we hear this from our students, that when they get to companies, we are pushing this, sustainability, knowledge, competences into them, and then when they get to companies, they find that there's a huge gap between what we've told them it's important and what they're facing in reality in their day-to-day jobs, and they're frustrated. So I think that matching of skills between leadership, middle management, and the youth that's pushing for that is crucial.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I don't know if any of the others want to jump in on that as well.
I was going to say, I think it's really interesting. KPMG recently published some research that said 20% of UK adults would actively not choose to work for someone if their ESG credentials weren't up there, and half would really think twice about taking a job with a company who didn't have strong commitment to ESG, whether that's net zero, SBTI, whatever it is. And I think the data and the evidence is out there, We do things like reverse mentoring at Boots. We also, and Walgreens Boots Life, we also do, initiatives and programs just to make it tangible for the audience. Yeah. We also do things like, we've signed up to the Sustainable Procurement Pledge, which for many of you, that's a not-for-profit pledge that actively helps upskill the procurement teams in thinking and putting sustainability conscious decisions at the heart of what they're doing when they're doing new contracts. But we also are fortunate because we do have a very, very engaged workforce who it is already in their DNA. And as a consequence of that, there's a great amount of self-propulsion that happens inside our organisation. So, for example, it wasn't the board that decided it would be a good idea to address the gap that there is in the UK on recycling hard-to-recycle products. We are responsible for putting a lot of products in your bathroom cabinet. It's one of the lowest recycled rooms in the house. I've got a whole bunch of theories, don't get me started, on why that might be. The ick factor is probably one who wants to sort through that bin. But there are, but it was the teams on the ground who said, we can do this, we want to do this, and they've created a whole new recycling system for the UK inside our stores in Boots, 700 of them. And we've got something like nearly 100,000 customers signed up to it. Bringing back products that would otherwise go into waste systems. That's coming from the ground up too, yeah? So I think we also have to, it's the old adage, you've got 2 ears and 1 mouth. You have to listen to what your colleagues and your team members are telling you, what they're doing, and empower them to take those ideas and turn them into
really
reality.
I was talking to the CEO of a technology business earlier in the week, and he was talking about the products they make are absolutely transforming their customers' journey into sustainability, and so their whole sustainability as a commercial opportunity is absolutely there for them. And then communicating that purpose back into the organisation, empowering everybody to think about, how, the products that you're designing and how you're taking it forward, and how, sustainability is the way forward. And then you get we want to grow a wildflower garden and have bees around the back of our factory. And he was saying, that's absolutely fantastic. That is what you want to do, but you need to balance that off and help them understand that that's just one small part of it. And that's probably not the biggest lever they can pull, but without dousing the enthusiasm that's there. So, and I think, Catherine, you've had examples of people in your organisation coming up with fantastic ideas, but making sure you're focusing on the ones that are going to genuinely help the business go forward.
Yeah, it's really interesting because we've done a lot of work in trying to sort of communicate some of our targets. And then so you get people in the business who'll come and EV charging is obviously a really big thing for hotels. And so we've got teams sort of running off, kind of developing the app so you can search by EV charging, and then somebody else sort of discussing with all the manufacturers. And I'm like, hang on a second, we need to work out how this is structured and where it comes in our scopes, because actually, if all of the franchise hotels in the world suddenly give free EV charging, that's obviously helping for the wider transition. But I'm interested in the greenhouse gas reporting protocol and what that means for delivery of our targets. So at the same time, it's like, it's brilliant, you're all doing this, but let's just think about it. But so many great ideas, like, plastic straws, right? Back years ago now, when all the hotels had plastic straws, which you think about it, was just terrible. It was one colleague in the organization who said, this is ridiculous, let's just get rid of them. And that's the really key point for me, and so much of this is, within my sustainability team, I have got technical experts, but increasingly I'm bringing people in from the business to either come on secondment or to actually be on the team, because for me, it's almost easier to upskill to learn about sustainability than it is to work out how to get something done in a massive matrix organization. Because actually, the strategy bit is kind of the easy bit. It's actually how do you operationalize it and get this agenda through with all the other competing agendas that there are in a big organization, I think is the absolute key for me. So having that balance of capabilities is really, really important.
I'd just like to pivot slightly, and we talked, when we were talking earlier, we talked about regional differences, because I think, on this whole agenda, Europe has been leading the charge. Asia has recent trip that colleagues and I did has evidence that there's mixed progress there, but they are really moving forward. And then the US has got political issues, but also the IRA bill is moving things forward in a certain direction. Maria, I know you've got experience here. Do you want to talk about how you've seen regional differences and maybe how you handle that?
Yes, sure. We've worked, I'm originally from Mexico, so I know the Latin American landscape. I've worked with companies there. And what we see is that the stage of evolution and development of sustainability, the knowledge around sustainability, climate, is very advanced in Europe. It's quite advanced in the US, catching up. Same in Asia. But when you look at some regions in the world, like Latin America and also in Africa, you see that there's still a huge gap. And when you talk to them about climate change, this is still so far away from their day-to-day preoccupations in their job. Because when you think about sustainability in Mexico, you're thinking about access to health, access to education, financial inclusion. And even though climate has an impact in all of those, it still seems very far away. So I think one of the biggest challenges that we face as we move forward is not to create a bigger gap between what's happening in the developing world and what's happening in the developed world. I mean, multinationals, I think, have a role to ensure that this upskilling process that's being put in place at the leadership, at the headquarters, needs to be translated to the different business units around the world. And I think that's not necessarily happening today because the realities are not the same, the legal context is not the same, and that's a massive challenge. Otherwise, we're just increasing the gaps and the inequalities that we already face.
Rossella, do you want to come in on that? And also maybe talk about how you've managed to inspire, or how JLR has managed to inspire employees in order to, or leaders in taking up this challenge?
Absolutely. There are many ways to inspire employees. For sure, partnering and collaborating with the key association, academia, to hear from them, to hear best practices, but also to have the opportunity to bring our best practices on the spotlight and share with them. And this is one of the key reasons why, for example, we have decided to partner with the Ellen MacArthur Foundation and also be part of the World Economic Forum Circular Economy, Circular Car Initiative, to have the opportunity to have sharing from one to each other, to have our employees, our experts and leaders, and even professionals, to be part of this platform, networking, sharing, be inspired by other industries. This is one. The other aspect, how to be inspired, is through collaboration with our business partners, with our startups, as through innovation, through trials. we can learn a lot, really. Our people can learn a lot in real, testing, trialing, getting lessons learned, and together, this will help into finding together a synchronization for the next step in solution together. So that's what we are really doing across decarbonization, circular economy kind of proof points and initiative. And of course, internal communication is our ally in a way, since of course it's so important to keep everyone updated, informed, where the company is with the progresses, bringing testimonials from the employees, bringing them on the spotlight, bringing numbers and evidences, let me say, of what we are doing, and in a way creating a sentiment that, yes, we can do this. Decarbonization is a marathon, is a step-by-step, year-over-year, project by project. However, we are keeping the pace, and we are doing this in real. So that's what really employees want to hear. And by the way, I want to add even what even talents want to hear. Since I totally agree, in a way, sustainability is a responsibility for the company, but it's also an opportunity. So it's really now, as Maria was saying, really a critical element for younger generation of workers. And absolutely, so it's really an opportunity to create upskilling or inclusion around sustainability initiative for young people.
Catherine?
I was just going to say a point on the point about inspiration. Just an anecdote. This time last year, we started this program going, all right, we need to inspire everybody and to take action and to get behind these targets. We started the work, and we actually were like, actually, people don't, everybody is inspired already. What they actually want to know is that 46% absolute carbon reduction target by 2030, I don't understand what that means for me in my role. Just tell me, help me understand what I have to get done. I don't need inspiring, I just need to get on with it. So that was kind of a really, so we've been trying to work that out ever since in terms of helping people understand that. But that was kind of, we started with that, we need to inspire everybody. But it was really interesting for our company that we didn't need that step. So it was like, okay, back to the drawing board, let's just work out who's doing what to get this done.
And I think that's really important, the sharing the wins, you know, the best practice, what different parts of the organisation have managed to achieve, making sure you're not reinventing from one part of the organisation to the other. One of our clients told us about 5 very different business units they had, and they would come together every month, but whatever, to share. And there was the competition of, oh my goodness, they've done that, you know, quick, next time we've got to have done something, and just really creating a momentum that people could get behind, but then making sure that what they were doing was, you know, commercially in line with the business strategy.
I'd like to just on that point on inspiration and on engagement. One of the things we've talked about ESG reports. You mentioned, you know, they can be quite dense and quite difficult documents. Do you know what I mean? And they can be quite technical and inaccessible. One of the things we do every single year when we publish a report is we acknowledge that we could not have created this report, as technical as it might be, without our team members and all the work that they do. And we have a day of celebration where we do a big report launch, and we actively acknowledge our CEO, our COO, they actively acknowledge the contribution of everybody within the context of that. But even within that, there is some great storytelling that we bring to life, and then we bring that out through all of our social channels and our internal channels. But even within that, there are targets, there are goals, there are technical elements that we need to connect our business with. So one of the big things we've done this year was we've gone a step further than Jaguar Land Rover. We've actually set everybody who is bonus eligible, bonus goals based on carbon reduction, waste reduction, and in international businesses, women in leadership. So we're actually making everybody accountable, and it affects and comes into play in their bonus. Brilliant. So really trying to, you know, acknowledge first and foremost our team members are doing it and they're great. Helping them understand it's not as technical, and it doesn't need to be as technical as some of us experience. There are some people in the room. I've got my colleague up the back there, Neil, who is a very, very strong technical expert. but it doesn't always need to be that technical.
To play your part.
To be able to play your part, and if you lean in and play your part, there is a bonus.
Yeah. Now, we could talk about this for a really long time. We're clearly all really passionate about it. Are there any questions from the audience? I didn't get any on my iPad, so has anybody got any burning questions? I think we've got a mic.
Thank you. My name's Ivor Tucker from a company called Generation C, and it's all about connecting the climate stories that companies have with school kids so that they can understand the challenges and the complexities of the solutions, but also understand there are solutions and there are operations happening, because there's so much climate anxiety where kids think it's all doom and gloom, and they don't actually understand that all the things you're talking about actually even happen. So how would you as companies plan to connect your operations, your climate stories with school kids so they can better understand? Because they're all passionate about the issues, but they don't have any detail about what you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great point. In fact, as a Jaguar Land Rover, we have several of these initiatives with secondary schools, of course with universities, but also with secondary schools, as we want to really explain what's the problem statement of climate action and what we are doing, at least from our perspective, into the mobility, what's needed, what's important, and also from user perspective, since there is also responsibility from user perspective, how to behave into this. So through these kind of programs, in particular in UK, however, also in Brazil and in China, where we have the other two big hubs in terms of manufacturing, we are really engaging with schools to share more about. It's not a matter of awareness; they are really aware about the climate. The climate change, but it's really where they can make the difference and where companies like us can make the difference. So absolutely, that's very important.
I think the question's really relevant because, yes, school children are worried about it, but it's a much, much broader societal communication that we need to embark on.
Hi, we've got the mic.
Oh,
David Greenfield from the Circular Economy Institute. Just really interested because fascinating panel discussion. I think one of the challenges I see is that we're now at a space where there's so many different opportunities to upskill, particularly the senior workforce. Which coat rack should we be putting ourselves onto? Is it circularity? Is it sustainability? Is it SDGs? Is it net zero? How do we bridge that multiple facet gap and ensure that our senior leaders are actually getting the training in the right things as a provider of circular economy training?
So, as somebody who assesses leaders for roles to run businesses, I don't know that it matters. I think as long as people are moving, into each of these areas, when we've got a fundamental shortage. Our former CEO had a comment that the quickest way to accelerate your career if you're the next generation of leaders is to move into this area. And I think that if you have a particular part of that interests you, I don't think it matters. We fundamentally believe that the leaders of tomorrow will be slightly different. They won't be, they will be fundamentally good leaders like the leaders have been up until now, but they will be braver in their innovation. They will be more inclusive. They will think longer term. And they will think outside of the box of their organisation. We are, it's flashing red at me, telling me we're out of time. We're all going to be around, so I'm sure we can answer further questions. But if you can all thank my wonderful panel, thank you so much.